Welcome to the Network Marketing Heroes podcast, hosted by 40-year network marketing veteran, author of best-selling books, The 4-Year Career and Mach 2 with Your Hair on Fire, and world-renowned speaker, Richard Bliss Brooke. When it comes to success in network marketing, who better to learn from than leaders who have actually done it? Listen as Richard interviews top leaders and gives you a behind-the-scenes look at how they did it. You'll get incredible tips and duplicable actions you can do right now to build your own 4-year career. Stay tuned after this episode for an exclusive discount code to get 10% off Richard's easy-to-use tools that will help propel your network marketing business to the next level at blissbusiness.com.
So awesome, Jenifer. Welcome to the Bliss Business Hero Call. So excited to hear your epic Yoli story. Are you here?
I am. I'm super excited to be here too, Richard.
Well, let's get into it. So the first thing I want you to tell our listening audience is a little bit about your story pre-Yoli, pre-network marketing. Who were you? Where were you? What were you doing before you got introduced? And then I'm going to drill down on exactly who introduced you and how you were introduced. So give us a little background.
That sounds great. Well, first, thank you. Very first thing is to thank you so much for allowing me to share my story, Richard. You and Kimmy have had a huge impact on my life, and I'm very, very grateful. Well, basically, my story is I, way back, was born in South Korea and moved here to the U.S. with my parents to eastern Iowa, of all places. And I've told you previously that this has been quite the journey for me. But growing up, I always had instilled in me just a work ethic and always believing that I could do anything. And I graduated from St. Ambrose University in Davenport, Iowa in 1994 with my bachelor's degree in psychology and occupational therapy. It served me very well. For 18 years, I was in the job with occupational therapy, either as a therapy manager or something that required me to travel all over God's green earth for many, many years. But I enjoyed it. In the last probably year of working in that profession, I just started to get, very discontent and, just wanted to have more in my life and didn't have a whole lot of time freedom and always away from my kids and my family. And so I kept looking, and I ended up starting my own business as an occupational therapy. It's basically staffing and providing educational seminars for healthcare providers. And that business failed terribly, and that was about a year. And I just remember thinking to myself, what in the world am I doing? And I just kept looking for something that could give me some more freedom and flexibility for my family and things like that. So that didn't work out. And so then I started another company, Crossroads Orthotics, and I had to sell that in 2 years, mostly because I didn't have any time and I could not support everything that company required. So I sold that company and went back into the standard occupational therapy profession, and I was just never content in just doing that. And I didn't know at that time what I was looking for or what was going to be happening to me in the next couple years. But so that's where I was.
I think you might have uncovered a secret to extraordinary network marketers. I mean, what better occupation and training for being a successful network marketer than to be a psychologist and a specialist in occupational therapy? I mean, that's what we do, isn't it? We treat people who are sick with their jobs.
Right.
And maybe that's not how they intended that occupation, but I think it's perfect for network marketing. Yeah. So obviously you were open and, consistent with, what we tell people is, no matter what you say to people, what really matters is when you say it and when they're open.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to say the wrong thing to the right person at the right time. So who was the fortunate person that the right or wrong thing to you, but at the right time? Who introduced you?
My friend Sandy Lambert actually had made what I thought at the time, and was just a random Facebook post about this program that she was doing and for health and things, and I was just like, I was totally ready for that because I just needed to have something happen with my physical, emotional health. But when I actually used the products and things, we had great results. Fast forward a few months, and August 3rd of 2012, I decided I wanted to just have her do a presentation. What's this business about? And my friend now, actually the person who was actually a stranger that she introduced me to was Wendy Backey. And she came to my house, and, she's playing these cheesy videos. And I honestly vividly recall not even paying attention to the videos. I was looking at Wendy, and I thought, oh, my goodness, why is she so happy, and why am I so unhappy? and I just kept watching her, and she was excited and enthusiastic. And, after it was done, I just said, I'm in. I'm all in. And I wanted to have not just, this financial, benefit, but I wanted to just be happy again. And everything that she was showing me and just her excitement was just like, I needed to have it. So that was the beginning of everything.
Wow. Well, and really significant, Jenifer, that what you were looking for was to just be happy. If you think about, why people join any income opportunity or make any change in their life or anything that they do, whether it's, getting fit or looking for better relationships or making more money or following their dreams, what's at the core of that is people are just looking for love and joy and happiness. They're just looking for that feeling of optimism and fun and energy in their life. And unfortunately, a lot of jobs don't provide that.
Right.
So beautiful. Tell us about your start. You said you were all in, and you cheesy videos and whatever Wendy said didn't matter, but she was on fire, which that's a secret to success right there. If you're going to present to people, doesn't really matter what cheesy video you show them or what you say. What matters is, are you representing the opportunity when you talk to them? Are you on fire? So that's what got you. So how was your start? Tell us about, what did you do your first 90 days? What kind of training did Wendy put you through? And
Yeah, so the first 90 days, honestly, it was we always look back and we laugh about it because it was really ignorance on fire, because we didn't really have an actual specific system for training and things like that. But we were just on fire, excited, and so I started off. I think in the first 90 days, I of course brought in my sister and my sister-in-law and my good friend and my husband's cousin and all these things of people who I knew were just as hungry for something exciting and fun and more for their life. And for the first 90 days, I brought in those 5 people to join me on this mission, and it was just a really, really so fulfilling for me, honestly, just because I just wanted to do something fun with people that I love and care about, and it just started this whole real movement in my area, and from there it just got even more and more exciting. The first 90 days was just more of a, starting the fire and getting the people I most care about to join me, and lots of roller coasters since then.
Yeah, all right, cool. So one of the things that I found interesting, I first learned about this at the retreat, where I learned your story, which maybe we'll talk about more about that later. But
yeah.
You personally enrolled I don't use this word negatively, but a really abnormal number of people your first year compared to most four-year career heroes that we interview. How many people did you enroll your first year?
I know. I always feel like we are kind of a strange bird, but we enrolled 10. I enrolled 10 people in my first year. 10 people. Yeah, 10 people in my first year.
And by the end of your first year, do you remember how many people total you had on your team?
That was it. I mean, the first 90 days was 5 people. The end of the first year was 10 people I had on my team. And I think a couple of those were actually by accident because they just, went onto my website and signed up.
I mean on your total team at all levels.
In the first year, it's so funny because I had to really, really dig on this. In our entire team, we actually I don't even have the first year, Richard. I apologize. I have right now just our total team members now is just under 2,000 teammates in the last 3.5 years. So I don't know exactly the full team in that first year, but it was, I'm sure, unusually low.
Yeah. So, I think this is really valuable for everyone listening because too often on a hero call I'm interviewing somebody that personally sponsored 943 people in their first 3 years or some ungodly number of people, and it's hard for people to see themselves doing that, and I'm exaggerating. Most people are somewhere around 100 to 200 people, but the reason normally you need to enroll that many people is you're looking for the people that are self-motivated, and everybody wants more money and everybody wants to be part of a movement, but wanting it and being motivated to do the work every day and build a team or something else. And we find usually that's about 5 to 10% of the people you enroll are actually self-motivated enough to do something, but you got a much higher percentage of your people that you enrolled to go to work. How did you do that?
Honestly, I think it's just like even hearing you say the words, just that 5 to 10% of the people that will actually go out and do it. I think it really was ignorance to the profession of what does it take? What do you have to do? We just, started sharing and basically making sure that everybody was able to just duplicate what we were doing. And that was just, presenting and just, I just didn't know better that as far as that most companies that you're trying to sponsor lots and lots of people, I just held on to those few people that I had and just kept spending a lot of time with them.
So in spending a lot of time with them, when you spend time with them, what did you do? What did you say? How did you cast a vision for them? How did you motivate them?
I just, we had gone, of course, to our dream conference and things, and I just wanted to show them that, especially for, of course, obviously you can tell that they were all ladies that joined me, and I just wanted them to see that there's a possibility, a hope for being able to have some freedom in our lives, because the people that I did have started off with me in the beginning were just looking for the same thing as I was, and that was to be able to have time and financial freedom, and it was really that was very foreign. Until Wendy shared that with me, it was very foreign to me. I just thought you had to go to work and bust your butt for 40 to 50 hours a week, and that was just the normal life. And what she was showing me was that wasn't that wasn't absolutely necessary, that there was a different way. And so when I was sharing that with these people that I most love and care about, we were so passionate about it that they just said, I want that too. And so we had, our what we call better body parties, and 10 to 15 hours a week we were pouring into our businesses outside of our full-time jobs, and just going to work and trying to share with the people that we love and care about, and it just duplicated from there, frankly. And even the word duplication, I didn't know what that meant until, this business either. But they just were passionate and on fire like we were. We were just consistent, and I don't know. I guess we were just so in love with what we were doing that we just couldn't stop.
Yeah. Well, you said a couple interesting things there, like almost a throwaway line. You were working, in addition to your jobs, you were working 10, 15, 20 hours a week in the business, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Every week?
Every week.
Yeah. And, I think that's such a profound secret to the success in our business is for people to actually put in the time. I was coaching somebody yesterday around time management. She's got 2 little kids and, looking to build a business, and where does she find the time? And so, we isolated. She takes her daughter to homeschool, I guess like somebody else homeschools her, sort of. And so she takes her daughter somewhere at noon, and she has a 30-minute drive home that's all hers after taking her daughter to school. And we just talked about, like, how much you could actually get done in that 30 minutes, especially if you were organized. Like, how many people could you actually call in 30 minutes if you didn't have to dig around and look for their numbers or think about who to call, but you actually had their names? I even suggested to her, get somebody, if you have to, get a kid to become your executive assistant and load your phone every day with the people you want to call, including making their numbers a hot link in your phone. So all you have to do is push the number, and you're dialing for dollars. But in 30 minutes, you could probably make, 6, 8, 10 phone calls, leave messages for people, and at least talk to 1 or 2 people in 30 minutes.
Yep.
And imagine what you can do if you actually did that every day, and maybe an hour a day, an hour and a half a day. There's so much you can get done if you're just laser focused and motivated and productive. And, for you to just capture that idea of 10 to 15 hours a week every week, if people can just get their head around what that can produce, it's massive what it can produce. And one of the secrets, and I realize, Jenifer, that you may not know exactly how you did it, but I just want people to hear that you did it, that who you were for your team was a constant ball of fire and energy and activity. And so if you're working 10 or 15 hours a week and they're working 10 or 15 hours a week, and you're driving people to events, which I want you to talk about, eventually it's going to work. And you might have been a slow burn your first year, but look at what it produced just 3.5 years later. Look at how geometric progressions has resulted in a couple of thousand active people. That's a complete 4-year career. 3.5 years. So tell us about the Better Body events, because I know you had a really strong focus on customers and having people have a really successful experience with your product line. How did you do that?
Yeah, and I one of the things that when I started, the system, the Better Body system for Yoli, my experience and my passion came from my experience with the product. And so it's, of course, will translate into when I started the business with my teammates was just that, you want to have as many people walking around that are using the products, that have the passion for the products, because even if they never join your team, those people are going to be connectors with other people. And so, making sure that we had lots and lots of customers. We have a very strong foundation of customers, because I was looking back at some numbers, and I think 80% of our numbers that come through every week are customers. And so, our focus on customers is because, number one, it's a little bit easier to deal with customers than, you don't have to make them get to events. You don't have to have them working on personal development. You don't have to, do all those things that you do with your business partners. But to have a real strong foundation of customers has been from, really from the beginning, the very first full year of working the business. But again, like I said, it's because I've already had experience at myself. And so once I had that and taught that to, have my business partners start with that passion as well, it just completely went berserk in especially the last couple of years, and it's been a true blessing. And I don't know if you mind if I digress a little bit, Richard, but when you're talking about like the organization of your calendar, I find that when I'm coaching the team that it's most beneficial, because in the beginning that is really the hardest part of devoting your commitment, is because when you're working a full-time job and you're a full-time, you're a mom or a dad and you have kids activities and all these things, it's very difficult. It can be difficult if you're not prepared and sitting down with your family and saying, you know what, we're going to do this, we're all in, this is what we're trying to shoot for. And what we call it is, windows of opportunity, and really taking out literally the calendar and highlighting the windows of opportunity that you have open to be able to spend time on the phone or spend time with your team or doing the presentations and things. And because I think that when we don't take control of our calendar, then the calendar takes control of us. And so for any of you or your listeners, I just think that the biggest key in being able to have success is managing your time well. And, of course, there's things that come up all the time, but, if you can block out windows of opportunity, you're going to have a lot more success than if you were just to go, just without any organization whatsoever, because things tend to get in the way. So I just wanted to make sure I could share that part because I think that was a huge part of our success.
Okay. And also tell us about the Better Body parties that you did that were just for customers. I found that to be a really great idea.
Yeah, honestly, when we do we call them BBPs, Better Body Parties, and so when we're sharing, just like what Wendy was doing with me, even though I had already tried the product and I'd never been to a quote-unquote party before, and so when she was sharing, of course, there's, share videos and things, but really leading with a need, we call it. We are finding out what the needs are for the people who are there, and we're offering a solution. And through that, all we do is just share our story, because I find that, people are more compelled to, listen to what you have to say and find it, believable when they can watch all these videos, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't have a story to back it up. So we just share our stories, and, because it's people that I already brought in there that I love and care about, they're listening to my story. They're listening to Wendy's story. They're listening to Sandy's story. And so when we do that, then we have a very high percentage of people who say, yeah, let me try it, So the majority of the people who enroll are truly for our area is a lot of customers that want to try the product and see how they feel. And from there, that's where we find a lot of our business partners are people who already have belief in the product.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so tell us a couple of success stories. I'd like for people to hear about somebody specifically that you introduced to the program. Just give us a tiny bit of background on who they are and what they did for a living, what their initial perhaps response to you was, and then how their success has unfolded the last 3.5 years. So pick a couple of people that have built great teams with you.
Yeah.
Can you tell us some success stories?
Yeah, well, I can tell you for sure. The first person that comes to my mind is my twin sister. She knew that I probably tried everything under the sun as far as, for us specifically, it's just like, weight loss and that kind of thing. And so she was very skeptical. But again, when you're starting off sharing with the people who you most love and care about, you can say things to them that you wouldn't say to a stranger, like, you're coming. You need to come and see this. It's so important for me to have you in the living room and listening to what this is about. And so when she started off, she came in as a business partner with me because I demanded it. And but she was very skeptical. She was an occupational therapist like myself, and really had no interest in, quote, building a business because, we were making a good living in the therapy world. But when 5 months into starting my business, my company closed. And so, I had a choice. I'm like, okay, I have lots of therapy jobs. I could go do that. But I begged my husband, please let me do this. I love it. This is exactly what I've been looking for. And so he said, Richard, you have 2 months, and you're going back to get a real job, is what he called it. And so I can't wait for you to meet him someday, because this real job ended up 2 months later. Our team went diamond, which, may mean nothing to other people. But, at the time, it wasn't until that happened that my sister said, all right, let me take a look at this really. And so even though I had put her and brought her in as a business partner right off the bat in August of 2012, she didn't start anything until about February, March of the following year.
Wow, so, 9 months later.
Yeah. So when she saw that, I always tell people, make sure you're celebrating these things, because the people who are watching, it's so important to celebrate that, because the people who are watching, just waiting to see if you're really serious, they start asking questions. And so when she started the same way I did. She already had product belief, and within, I think it was about a year that she was diamond, and now she's joined me in the upper ranks with Yoli, and she's a blue diamond as well, and just doing amazing things. And now the back to that whole time management part. She was working a full-time job much longer than I was. As she was on this journey, and she has 4 children. I was the wise one. I only had 2, and she had to manage her time really well. And so the beauty of it, of course, is now being able to both have some time freedom and be home with the kids in the summer and take trips with them and all these things that we could never do in corporate America. And so she was one of my beautiful stories, and I still hold the drop the mic moment with her. But
before you go on to the next one, just for clarity, so when you say you got to diamond and you celebrated that, what does diamond mean, like in terms of sales volume? I know you're on a weekly cycle, but what would be the monthly sales or approximate income?
So week to week, that basically week to week we have our volumes come through, and diamond is just 10,000 or 20,000 in volume, 10,000 left, 10,000 right for diamond, and basically a monthly income somewhere between 100 or 1,000 to 1,500 a week. Okay,
so like 4,000 to 6,000 a month in income, and about $80,000 a month in sales, which is, that's a 4-year career in itself. And then you said something really significant, that you celebrated it. Exactly how did you celebrate it?
I know that people have different views on social media, but one of the biggest things that I stress to my teams all the time is, celebrate, gratitude and celebration for your, number one, your person who shared with you, but also celebrate your rank advancement for your teams publicly, because, there's lots of people who've been watching, even today, there's people still that have been watching for 3 years that never wanted to take a look at what it is that I'm doing, and now are just coming through and saying, okay, now I'm ready. Let me hear what this is about, because of the celebrations that Wendy and the team have shown. And so the same thing for Jeannie. Like when she went diamond, I celebrated her on Facebook publicly so that people who are watching, who may be strangers to me, there are people who are in her circle of influence, can see it, so that she has that kind of social proof that this works.
All right. Tell us about another one.
All right. So my other one, which was actually, it's really very comical, because my sister-in-law, she too is in the same place as Jeannie. She actually works 4 or 5 different jobs as an actress and director of different shows, and she's an actress. And she was very skeptical, of course, because, again, I tried everything. And so she came in as a business partner because I demanded it. And so she had no interest in sharing the business, no interest in that whatsoever. But it wasn't until probably, again, the same thing when I went diamond and she saw that happen. She's like, all right, maybe I'm interested in sharing a little bit. But it's still, for her, it was still yet another 6 months after that my husband, basically told her, I don't even think you can do this. Why waste your time? And so that was kind of a button pusher for her. And so she got started sharing with her circle of influence again, and she was able to make a significant change in her lifestyle as far as income before she was, down. She had some health issues that came up, and she wasn't able to work anymore. But she finally went diamond after a couple of years, and she was, again, it's those people who can be the hardest, maybe your friends and your closest family. But, even people who are skeptical, I say, are, still able to do amazing things if they're inspired in the right way and see that you're totally serious and all in. So. Yeah.
Well, here's something I've always found critically important to understand about skeptical people. Skeptical people are just people that have deep convictions in their beliefs and the way they see the world. So when you go to them and you say, hey, I got this great thing, blah, 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 join me, and what they're skeptical about is that you have a better way, that you're right. They're basically people that believe that they are right, at least for themselves. They have a deep conviction about what's important to them, what they want to do with their life, and they're not easily influenced. And so, unfortunately, most people's orientation to skeptical people is that they don't want skeptical people, that skeptical people are bad and, they're haters and, we don't want to be around them. And yet, if you think about them differently, skeptical people are the absolute best people to have on your team.
Yes.
Because what's the number one thing that takes people out of the game? It's people telling people on your team it won't work.
Yep.
And skeptical people don't listen as readily to the naysayers. Once they decide to do it, which might take them 6 months or a year to decide, but once they decide, they're deeply convicted and they're not easily swayed to get out.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree. And honestly, my skeptical people, because I have several more that are somewhere down in my team, that I find that they are, it's because they can empathize with those skeptical people, and they can, say, I felt the same way, and that just that takes down the wall and puts them at ease, and they're my, greatest workers and my greatest teammates, is because they just have no qualms with people who have that same attitude when they hear about it.
Yeah. For somebody to be able to say, I felt the same way, and it took me 9 months to, come around and see it, that makes the prospect who is skeptical just feel much more honored and part of the process, and maybe they won't take 9 months to come around. So,
right.
Next question, Jenifer. What is the biggest mistake that you've made in 3.5 years? Maybe you made it one time. Maybe it was something you said. Those kind of fall into the category of the biggest mistakes I've ever made, or things I've said. Or maybe it's something you did. Maybe you did it or said it one time, or maybe you did it over and over and over again. What's your biggest mistake? And maybe it didn't cost you business. Maybe it cost you health or integrity, or maybe it cost you a superstar, or maybe it cost you momentum in business. What's the biggest mistake?
Yeah, one of the biggest mistakes that I made in the beginning was not realizing that I couldn't want success for certain people more than they wanted to have it for themselves, because I spent probably after our team went diamond, and I think it was somewhere around, a year later, maybe at our conference in August, that we had actually gone double diamond by then. And from there, for some, of course, this is, people call that the dip, from what I understand, that from August of that year, for good, 6 months, I remember life happened to a couple people on my team, and I got in a funk. And so I was so stuck on the frustration of wanting these couple people to do something that they weren't willing to do, that I let myself kind of get my own mind in a funk, and I just, stopped. I stopped sharing and talking, and the excitement and enthusiasm was low. And and the more I thought about these couple people, the more I just got stuck. And so one of the things that I have found for people is just that now I can look back in retrospect and say that was good for me. I needed to experience that so I could realize that you can get stuck there, and some people just never get back out of that place. And I think that's where people end up quitting, is that they just can't get past this one or two people who don't aren't as excited and enthusiastic as you are. And so after that first 6 months of being in a lull, I just got a kick in the butt from basically my husband, just saying, you move on, keep going. You have to reach more people and reach out to more people, and or you're going to, well, he actually said, you're going to have to go back and get another job. And so, it was one of those things where now looking back, I hope that my, journey can be of value to my team and other people's teams, that you really have to stop wanting it for people more than they want it for themselves. If life happens to all of us. And if they're not going to, be able to get out of that, you have to keep moving forward and don't allow yourself to, be impacted by just a couple people. And that turns things around completely. Ever since then, we literally have been, going off the charts every single month. It just keeps getting better and better. But I just think that was probably divine intervention for me to have to experience that and realize that, everyone has to have, even that part of my story matters for people, and it just helps me to grow, hopefully, up to be a better leader, and I'm grateful for it. So.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I think listeners will be curious too. When you were in the funk, what is the story that you made up and told yourself that took you out of action?
Yep. Yes, funny that you would say that, Richard, because when I was able to spend the weekend with you two, you and Kimmy, that was one of the things where, on the plane home, I thought about that. And, when this happened, I just remember telling myself, it's like, but I was so excited. And why aren't they listening to me? And why is my, excitement not the same for them as it was before? And I just kept going down in this spiral of I'm not good enough. They're not listening to me. This isn't going to be for me. It just kept getting worse every day with this self-talk that was just so negative. And I decided that, after I listened to you guys, and then I was that it was just what they call critics math. You probably taught on that. I don't even remember who taught on that, but basically having, hundreds of people who are like, oh, this is so wonderful, and then having one or two people who say, oh, you're terrible and this doesn't work. That was what I was focusing on. I was only focusing on the negative. I was only focusing on the fact that these two people decided that this wasn't for them, and it was stealing, number one, all my joy. But it was also making me think that I couldn't do it, that I wasn't good enough. And so I'm thankful for butt kickers to get for butt kickers to get us out of that hole.
Well, it's interesting that your husband knows you well enough to know that all he needs to do is threaten that you have to go back and get a job, and that changes your story.
I am psychologically unemployable, from what one of my friends now said.
All right, what's the smartest thing you've done?
The smartest thing I think I've done, honestly, is just to stop trying to be all wise. Stop trying to know everything there is to know about a compensation plan. Stop trying to know everything there is to know about, how the products work, and trying to be the expert, and just keep being excited, enthusiastic with the teams and with our customers. And that is number one, giving me so much more peace because it's a lot less overstimulating for my brain. But also it's just attracted and drawn more wonderful people into my life by just sharing the excitement and enthusiasm more than anything else. And so I don't know what other, companies have or do, but I think the biggest key is just to be able to attract people. Don't try to, know it all and be the expert and share all your, wisdom, because to me it just scared people away. So just be excited and joyful and keep sharing.
Yeah, okay. Super smart. So let's talk about personal development. I know that has had a big impact on your leadership and your path. What have you done along your journey? What have you studied? Who have you studied? What have you read? What have you listened to? What have you done that's been transformational for you?
This has been such this personal development journey, honestly, when I was started off, I didn't even know what that meant. I mean, if people actually did this in corporate America, we'd have so much of a happier world, and taking responsibility for ourselves and our responses. And I have found that the personal development has been such a key to helping me to realize that starting off every day with gratitude, it just changes your whole outlook on life. And when people can do that, of course I study the Bible, number one, and number two, being able to meet people like you at these different events and things, that the personal development journey is the biggest part of your whole journey, is changing how you perceive life, how you perceive yourself, how you put yourself out there in the world, to be a better, person, to be able to respond instead of react. And there's just so much stuff that I've learned, and I think it's, the best thing that I've done for my teams is to just pour into them and more just asking a lot of questions. I think our self-talk is huge in our life, as you taught me. Self-talk can destroy your entire business, like I almost tried to do myself. But if you can try and keep working on yourself and just becoming a person who people want to follow, I don't know. I just think it's been a huge, huge difference for me. And I always tell my team, one of the most important things I tell my team, to me, is just, what are you full of? When life bumps into you, what spills out? And that's a big thing I have on the front of my computer, is just, the way that we respond to people, and no matter what happens, good and bad, because you're going to have positive people and you're going to have skeptical people. But how you respond to them and things that happen in your life is going to be what really brings more amazing people into your path.
I love that. What are you full of when life bumps into you? What spills out? That's I've never heard that before. That's really beautiful.
Yeah, and it's just so true. I mean, when I think about it, it's like, when I would work in corporate America and knew nothing about personal development, I would just freak out. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I used to freak out and be just, not a nice person to be around in now looking back in retrospect. But now, of course, things happen that, that I might not respond well, but I try to do every day, just be a little bit better about being aware of who's showing up, right, Richard? Is it that, that child, that petulant child, or is it the person that I want to put out there in the universe? And so that's been a huge impact, and so I say to everybody, just keep working on you, and that's what's going to help expand your world and your impact on the world a lot more than anything else.
So you and Wendy showed up at a Bliss leadership retreat. I wish I would have had that first hour captured on video when I asked you to, what are you doing here? And you were like, well, we don't know. We just decided to show up. So tell us that story. Why did you come to the retreat, and what did you get out of it?
Oh my goodness. And I know if Wendy's listening to this call that we just laughed, the whole way home, and even after we got back, about what, literally we were the petulant child showing up to the retreat because we thought we were looking for, how we're going to be these amazing leaders, and how can we improve our leadership skills and all these different things, because neither one of us has had a background in this business. And when we started off the weekend with asking, personal life and questions like that, we literally were such brats. I don't even know how else to say it. we were complete brats, Richard, and we were like, oh gosh, after the first half a day, we were like, should we leave and go just look at the beautiful sights? and I'll never forget when we spent the time and we were listening to other people's stories and you were asking these questions, and I could not believe the emotional responses that you pulled out of me that I never even saw coming, and how powerful that was for me in the end when you just pulled it all together. And I can't believe what an impact, even since coming back, and what was it, just earlier this year, that how much of an impact it's made on how I am present with my teammates when they're talking, instead of trying to move forward in my head of what's the next thing I'm going to say. I'm a work in progress. But also how I just am interacting with people, and who's showing up, and why people are responding the way that they're responding, and it's just taught me so much about leadership. I just wasn't expecting it to come that way, and so I am truly forever grateful to you and Kimmy for putting us through that and letting us brats show up for the first half day thinking we knew everything in the world, and to show us that how it is to be a good leader is to just know yourself better, and so that was amazing and powerful, and I just want everyone to experience it, and only just maybe not as bratty as we did.
No, it was. You know what? It's like your slump, Jenifer. I wouldn't trade that for anything, to have that be part of your experience at the retreat and my experience at the retreat. I'll never forget Wendy sitting in the chair, like staring me down, like she was there to take me on for sure. It was pretty funny. And I don't think I said it to her, but I wanted to say, so you paid $6,000 to show up here and take me on?
Exactly. Oh gosh, it was. Well,
I'm glad you got something, some lasting value out of it.
Yes.
Totally. So in our remaining couple of minutes, two things. The last thing you get to do is ask me a question, but now you can't think about what that question is because you have to answer a question for the listening audience. So for perspective, Jenifer, the reason I do these calls is I believe, as I know you and Wendy believe, that belief is everything. That with desire is meaningless. It's nothing. It's like it just doesn't matter. Everybody wants to be happy and peaceful and have loving relationships and have financial freedom. Everybody wants to earn $25,000, $50,000 a month. I mean, who wouldn't? Even people who aren't materialistic, if they think about it, they can do more good in the world, they can serve more people, they can be more generous the more money they have. It's not desire that makes a difference. It's believing you can do it here. Yeah. And so what I've experienced is, the more different ways people can hear that it's been done by different people with different belief systems and backgrounds. And, if you can do it from Iowa, you can do it from anywhere. And belief is the key. So my vision for these calls is, there's, maybe a few hundred people listening live, but more importantly, over time, I still listen to stuff that was recorded 20 or 30 years ago because most of this kind of stuff is timeless. Yeah. And, Jim Rohn did a live event probably 20 years ago. It's, probably one of the most listened to CDs in our entire profession. And because it doesn't matter when it was done. People I trust will be listening to this interview. People all over the world. Yeah. That are in that place where, of course, they want to be successful. But what's holding them back is the story that they're telling themselves and the story that they believe about what's possible for them and their team. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is if you had just a minute or two to talk to that person, maybe it's somebody listening to this 7 years from now in some foreign market somewhere, and what they're struggling to do is to believe they can do what you've done. If you were the last person on the earth they ever got to hear from, like you had to either make the difference for them or not, what would you say to them?
Wow, that's a heavy burden. You know, I think I have found more. One of our founders always tells us, you know, you become what you think about. You know, Earl Nightingale, and that was very powerful for me. And so, with all of your listeners, whether they're having mediocre success or they have a lot bigger dreams and goals that they're looking for, is I always say that it's going to be a lot more effective for each of us individually if we have something to pay forward, once we're not here anymore. And I say, to my team all the time, you're not just building this to create a legacy for yourself, more money and more stuff and more of these things. You can create a legacy for your kids, your grandkids, your nieces and nephews, all those things if you would just get out of your own way and stop sowing a seed of doubt and fear and all these things that we keep telling ourselves. If you're sitting there and you're trying to teach your children, then live it. We teach our kids how to ride a bike, Richard, right? We expect that they're going to fall down. Why is it then we go out into the world and live our life, we spend the majority of the time in terrible self-talk and doubt and fear? What kind of legacy does that leave for our kids? Because I think all of those things will duplicate the good and bad. Sometimes the bad duplicates faster. But I think that if we could start living our life in a way that if our kids are going to do the same thing based on what they see, then we would do things and just expect to fall down and teach them how to get back up, right? Have more positive self-talk. Have more belief. Have more, if I fall down, it's okay because I'm going to get back up and I'm going to go do it again.
Beautiful.
The worst thing that I can ever see is not just that wouldn't do amazing things financially for my family. It's that I would teach them, perseverance and persistence. And you're going to fall down, but you have to, get up again, and you have to problem solve, and you have to do all these things. If I can teach my kids how to do that, that to me is going to create a bigger legacy than any millions of dollars in the world. So if there's anything you can do that could help you get out of bed every day and keep pushing forward, just pretend like you're doing it for your kids, because all of us know that we would do anything for our kids.
Yeah, and it's like break the cycle.
Yes.
One of the things we talked about in the retreat is, the greatest influences on our belief systems are our parents. And in most respects, those are really good beliefs they instilled, but in some respects they can be totally limiting because perhaps our parents never put themselves in a position to embrace opportunity and create a huge paradigm shift in their economics and their leadership. And maybe they did, but maybe they didn't. And, so to the degree that they may have left us with some limiting beliefs, you have to ask, well, where did they get their limiting beliefs? And that would be your grandparents.
Yep.
And it just the cycle just sort of continues. And it's a beautiful, extraordinary thing to think that we can, as parents, be aware enough of that process and aware enough of how powerful our words are that we can totally reinvent the cycle and empower children who in turn empower children.
Yes, for sure.
So to wrap this up, Jenifer, you get to ask me a question. You go ahead.
All right. I wish I would have known, because I would have planned really well.
You don't get to plan.
I have a lot more than just one. No, I am curious to see how you handle situations in your business or people in your business that don't have currently the ability to take 110% responsibility for their own business and seem to find a way to, either blame it on their sponsor or their team or their geography, whatever it might be. How do you empower those people to realize you have to take 110% responsibility for your business?
Great question. And here's how I'll answer that. What I have found is dealing with those kinds of subjects one-on-one with people where, perhaps you are somebody on my team and who you are is you blame other people, you look for the easy way to get something done, you look for other people to do what's your responsibility, you complain a lot, you gossip about other people, you just basically have typical neurotic behavior, which, people can get away with in a normal life where, they have maybe a circle of, 8 or 10 friends and, they have family that tolerates anything they do, and then, of course, the family talks behind their back. But they have a job where, the culture of jobs today is it's harder and harder to not only be held accountable for your performance in a job, it's harder and harder to get fired. And so it enables people's neuroses, their bad habits. But what I found doesn't work is for me to sit down with you, Jen, as a leader on my team and say, okay, basically here's what's wrong with you. Here's, where you're like negative and a gossip and a blamer and you don't take responsibility for stuff and you're always looking for me to do your work. Those kind of conversations obviously don't land well because you're talking to somebody that doesn't take responsibility. And so how can they hear a conversation about taking responsibility? But here's what does work, is to create a leadership culture with your entire team where you speak about these subjects conceptually and culturally. Like, here's what we're building. Here's what I want to build. I want to build a team that embraces these ideologies. I want to build a team that that treats each other this way, and a team of entrepreneurs that thinks this way and acts this way. And this is what it takes to be successful. And my commitment to you is that I'm going to model these behaviors. And I'm going to encourage you all to model these behaviors. And, oh, by the way, I'm really only going to work with people that model these behaviors because, modeling the old neurotic, I get away with this in my job and my family and my small group of friends because nobody calls me out on it behavior, that's just going to suck the life out of me as a leader, and I'm not going to be able to build a great team with you. So these are the people I'm going to be working with. These are the people I'm going to be championing. These are the people I'm going to be recognizing. These are the people I'm going to be running with, is people that act like adults and act like leaders and champion people and empower people, including themselves, and they take full responsibility for their actions, including acknowledging when they did something stupid and destructive. And you know what? If you acknowledge it, I'm going to hug you, and we're going to move on. And if you don't acknowledge it, I'm going to avoid you because you're toxic. But you're not talking to an individual.
Yeah.
you're talking to the team in terms of you're casting a vision about the culture that you want to create there. So what it allows is for each individual person to save face and to consider the possibility of stepping up without being attacked personally and without feeling like you're talking to them individually even though they know you will be. It just gives them an out. You know, the Japanese built an extraordinary culture by just having as a fundamental rule in dealing with each other to the grace of allowing people to save face. And if you allow people to save face, if you allow people to step up on their own initiative without being stepped on, they'll rise up in many occasions. And then the other advantage is if you get in a situation where you really do need to have a conversation with somebody one-on-one, you're not giving them a set of rules that they might think you just made up to pick on them, but you can reference, hey, this is our culture. So, in Bliss Business, we even have a set of, sorry to steal it from the Bible, but we have a set of the 10 cultural commitments. Mm-hmm. They're not commandments.
Yeah.
But there are 10 of them, and they're commitments, and they're all about the culture. And so what you can reference that with people and say, look, here's the things that we've talked about that are important in leadership, and in this particular instance, where do you see where you might have stepped out of line?
Beautiful.
And so you have something that people can reflect on that just allows them to save face. That's the best way I know how to do it.
I love it. Beautiful. I'll be looking for those.
Thank you, Jenifer. Hey, thank you, everybody at Bliss Business, for attending, listening to another extraordinary call with Jenifer Furness and Yoli, who's built an extraordinary 4-year career, and she did it by loving people to death and championing people and empowering people and driving those legs to China, literally. And whether you're listening live or you're listening years down the road somewhere where you're alone and you're concerned about believing, step it up, step into Jen's shoes. She did it from Iowa. You can do it from anywhere. Thank you all for joining us. Good night.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Richard Bliss Brooke's Network Marketing Heroes podcast. If you are inspired and are ready to create your own success story, then it is time to take advantage of some of the top network marketing tools available. Pick up the top recruiting tool that has prospects saying yes, the 4-year career and the 4-year career for women. Get your mindset right. Without a clear vision, success is lost. Check out the best-selling book on vision, Mach 2 with Your Hair on Fire. Learn to think like a successful person with this step-by-step guide on how to break through your self-imposed limitations. Mach 2 Vision Training is a 90-minute 4-part video training where you get Richard to walk you through crafting your vision. It's a must for anyone looking to step outside the box and hit the ground running. For 10% off your order, use the discount code HERO at checkout. If you're serious about building your business, make sure to subscribe to Richard's blog for all the latest tools and articles. This success story is not typical. It is meant to inspire you and show you what's possible. It is not what you should expect to accomplish. Your income will depend entirely on you, your commitment, your work ethic, your leadership, and your ability to acquire customers and inspire sales leaders to join your team. Most people who start off intending to build a sales team do not maintain their motivation to continue.